grade 5 students and to all the students watching in the Philippines. It's a brand new day and a brand new hope. I am teacher Numerous Dahoynan and I would like to welcome you all to our health class subject. Are you all excited? You should be excited because another day, another lesson to learn. In the previous topic, you learned about the bandaging techniques. Bandaging techniques is very important because it can be used to support injured joints, secure dressing, and control bleeding to any person who have wounds and injuries. Today, I will make sure that you will learn and enjoy in our new lesson in Health 5. For today's discussion, we're going to talk about first aid principles, the importance of first aid principles, and how to demonstrate first aid principles. So go get your pen and papers as we learn a new topic for today. Before we proceed to our next topic, I have prepared here a matching type game. In this game, I want you to identify the name of the picture being portrayed. Match the column A to column B. Are you ready? Great! Let's start. I will give you 10 seconds to answer. Time's up. Now, let's check your answer. Did you get the correct answer? Great, let's proceed. Now, let's check the correct answer. Did you get the correct answer? Great! Very good, students, and thank you for your participation. Let me present our objectives for today. In today's discussion, you are expected to identify basic first aid principles, develop appreciation of first aid principle by making an essay, and demonstrate appropriate first aid principle using emergency situational scenarios. Have you encountered an emergency situation where a certain person is unconscious and has common injuries and conditions? Or have you experienced being injured while playing with your friends? What would you do if one of the members of your family had cuts or wounds? What did you do during that time? Did you just watch the scene? Did you help the victim? Or did you want to help but lack of knowledge about first aid? Let me teach you the basic of first aid here in my class. As a student, it is very important to have knowledge of how to apply basic first aid principles to assess and save a person's life. Now, let's tackle what is first aid. First aid is the first and immediate assistance given to any person suffering from either minor or serious illness or injury until full medical treatment is available. For minor conditions, first aid care may be enough, but for serious problems like fracture or severe bleeding, first aid can help the victim to minimize the injury and elevate the suffering of the victim. First aid care should be continued until more advanced care becomes available. Learning basic first aid techniques can help you cope up with any emergency. You may be able to keep a person's breathing, reduce their pain, or minimize the consequences of injury or sudden illness until an ambulance arrives. This could mean the difference between life and death for them. It can be difficult to think clearly in the midst of emergency. Training your mind before you find yourself in a high-pressure situation may help you save a life or potentially help someone in pain. When it comes to first aid, there are 3 P's to remember: preserve life, prevent deterioration, and promote recovery. First, preserve life. As a responder to any situation, your first priority should be preserve life. You may need to perform CPR, stop bleeding, or take actions to preserve the victim's life. Second, prevent deterioration. Do what you can to keep the victim in stable condition until medical professionals arrive. The goal is to prevent the condition from worsening and prevent any potential further injury. This means moving the victim to a safer location, applying first aid, stabilizing them, or just staying with the victim and providing comfort. Last, promote recovery. After you've done what you can do with first aid treatment, your job now is to promote recovery. This can be done by encouraging confidence, providing comfort, attempting to relieve pain, and so on. Now, let's have a short activity with multiple choice and essay. For multiple choice, write the letter of the correct answer. And for the essay, write it on long bond paper. For multiple choice, I will give you 5 seconds to answer each question.
Number 1. What immediate care should you provide when a person is injured or ill until full medical treatment is available? A. Circulation, B. First aid, or C. Fracture? Time's up. The correct answer is B. First aid. Number 2. In first aid, we can keep a person breathing, reduce their pain, or minimize the consequences of injury or sudden illness until an ambulance arrived. This could mean the difference between A. Life and death, B. Success and failure. Time's up. The correct answer is A. Life and death. Number 3, last number. Why it is important to learn the basic first aid principles? A. It gives you tools to prevent the situation from becoming worse. B. It is very important to learn the basic first aid principle because it saves lives. It enables you to assess person who become injured in the event of an accident or emergency situation until help arrives. Or C. All of the above. Time's up. The correct answer is C. All of the above. Now, this is the instructions for essay. Write an essay explaining why first aid principle preserves life, prevent condition, and promote recovery. Now, this is the criteria for essay. Content, 15 points. Grammar, 15 points. Mechanic, 10 points. Vocabulary, 10 points. A total of 50 points.
Now, let's move on to the basic first aid principles. Accidents can happen anytime and anywhere. So it is very important that we have knowledge on how to apply basic first aid once we encounter persons in emergency situation. In helping a person, we should always remember the 5 basic first aid principles. First, ensure that it is safe to intervene. Second, first aider safety first. Third, conduct initial assessment. Fourth, take immediate actions first thing first. And lastly, get help.
Check the scene. Once you recognize an emergency exists, take the time to look around for such things as glass, hostile bystanders, oncoming cars. Listen for things such as alarms or escaping gas, and smell for things such as gas or smoke. Be sure to always use gloves and a barrier device when dealing with a first aid situation. If it is safe to do so, check the person. Ask the person, "Are you okay?" Tap the person on the shoulder. If there is no response, call emergency medical services or send a bystander to do so. Remember to tell the bystander to grab an AED if one is available. Check the airway. Tilt the head back and lift the chin. This action moves the tongue away from the back of the throat and lets the air reach the lungs. Check for breathing. Look at the unconscious person's chest. Look for rise and fall. You must also listen and feel for normal breathing. Do not take more than 10 seconds. Check circulation by looking for deadly bleeding and signs of shock. Quickly look at the person from head to toe. You may need to do a hands-on check to assess whether first aid is required. Do not perform a hands-on check unless you can be sure that the airway will not be compromised. This check is mainly for unconscious people who cannot tell you what is wrong. Check the head and neck. Look and feel for any abnormalities such as bumps, soft spots, or bleeding. Do not push on soft spots. They may be fractures of the skull. Check the shoulders by looking and feeling for any bumps or bone deformities. Check the chest by feeling the ribs for deformity. Gently press on the abdomen to see if it is hard. The abdomen should feel soft to the touch. If the abdomen is painful or hard to the touch, you may have to remove clothing and check for bruising. Check the hips. Put your hands on both sides of the pelvis and push down on the hips and then in on the sides. The bones should move together. Do not push or pull if the person shows any signs of discomfort. Check the legs by feeling for any deformity in the bones or any swelling. Check the arms by feeling for any deformity in the bones or any swelling. After your secondary survey, it is important to keep the person comfortable and monitor the ABCs continually until the EMS person arrives. Once you've checked your ABCs and completed your secondary survey, you should move an unconscious person to the recovery position. Move only if the airway is open, if the person is breathing, if there's no deadly bleeding, and you don't suspect a neck or back injury. The modified Haynes recovery position is to be used on an unconscious person who has a suspected spinal injury and must be left alone or lose vomit. The steps to complete the Haynes roll is the opposite of the recovery position, with the person facing away from you at the end of the roll.
We should always remember, students, that the 5 steps and procedure of basic first aid principle plays an integral part to help a person having emergency situations like injuries, fracture, severe bleeding, and any conditions to give assistance to avoid the condition worst until full medical treatment is available. And that's the end of our discussions. For your activity, you will have a role-play presentation. For a role-play presentation, I will group you into 3 groups. Each group will choose emergency situational scenarios where they can apply the first aid principle. I have here 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, Cal fall off her bike and fracture her legs. Second scenario, Nathan has fallen out of a tree and is unconscious. And last scenario, Mark injured his legs while playing basketball. Now, I will give you 1 minute to plan and prepare with your group mates, and I will give you 3 minutes to present your role-play presentation. Thank you so much, students, and to all the students watching in the Philippines. I hope that you learned a lot on our discussion for today about the first aid principles here in Health 5. Once again, this is Teacher Numerous Tahoynon. Goodbye and God bless.